What's up guys? Back with another educational video, and this week we're talking about refeeds, aka carb cycling, aka calorie cycling. But first, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment for the algorithm. Refeeds, also known as carb cycling, calorie cycling. Basically, the idea is you're eating lower calories on your diet days, and then you're having refeeds at much higher calories, and typically, traditionally, mostly from increased levels of carbohydrate. The idea behind this started back in the bro bodybuilding days of like the 90s, where people, specifically bodybuilding coaches, would have their clients do cheat meals. And the idea was, we're gonna shock the body and stoke the metabolic furnace so that we keep burning fat faster. Then in the early 2000s, once leptin was discovered and a lot of the leptin pathways were kind of elucidated, the idea was, well, we know dieting reduces leptin. We know leptin is important for fat loss. We're gonna do refeed days because we know if we overfeed carbohydrate in the short term, it will raise leptin. Even later, some of the more evidence-based folks, myself included, said, well, we should do higher calorie days because it might help your body maintain its metabolic rate a little bit better, and maybe we won't see as great of a reduction in your basal metabolic rate from dieting. Now, we have about 20 years of evidence looking at this stuff, and so what is my current position on refeed days or calorie cycling or carb cycling? Again, I was somebody who was very much in the camp of, yeah, we want to pump leptin up, it's going to help maintain our metabolic rates, and the evidence is just really underwhelming, to be honest. So yes, if you overfeed carbohydrate, you do get increases in leptin. Dietary fat in the short term doesn't really raise leptin, and dietary protein only modestly raises leptin because protein is an insulin secretagogue, and so insulin does raise leptin as well. Leptin and insulin tend to go hand in hand together, but obviously carbohydrates are much more powerful for that because they do cause a greater secretion of insulin. So while short-term carbohydrate overfeeding can raise leptin, it's a very transient effect. As soon as you go back into dietary restriction or calorie restriction, leptin goes right back down. And the actual studies looking at weight loss and fat loss, where they vary carbohydrates throughout the week versus just eating the same amount of total calories each day with weekly calories equated, because again, that's important. If we're going to compare apples to apples, we have to equate weekly calories. They just don't see a difference in fat loss. They don't really see a difference in lean mass, and so it just appears to be a tool. There was one study that did show that back-to-back refeed days where participants took their calories up to maintenance, and it was from overfeeding carbohydrate, that they did have a slight reduction in the level of metabolic adaptation that was incurred from dieting. However, it was only about the difference of like 30-40 calories a day, which clinically is dubious as to how relevant that is. And again, we just haven't seen any studies showing differences in fat loss when using calorie cycling or carb cycling or refeed days. What does that mean? It's not worse than eating the same thing every day. See, this is really interesting. A lot of people will hear me say things like, refeed days aren't superior to just eating the same thing every day. And what they think I'm saying is refeed days are actually bad and you shouldn't do them. And that's not true. The other way to look at this is you can have some higher calorie days and it won't negatively impact your fat loss as long as you correspondingly reduce your intake on your other days. For example, what I like to do, because it's more conducive to my lifestyle, is one, I eat a little bit more calories on hard training days, and two, I give myself more calories on the weekends, because on the weekends we tend to go out to give myself more flexibility, and so I can do that because it's not going to negatively impact my fat loss, or if I'm in a maintenance phase or even a gaining phase, I'm not going to gain more body fat by having higher calorie days, as long as my weekly calorie budget is the same. Many people, especially those who use our app Carb Diet Coach, love the fact that they can have higher calorie days and strategically plan them around when they have events. And because Carbon has a weekly planner where you can raise and lower calories on specific days, and it will automatically raise and lower your other days depending on how you do it to keep your weekly budget the same. It makes it super easy to be able to put in high and low calorie days, which again, I like to do higher calories on the weekends. Just gives me more flexibility, helps me with adherence, And I've seen that work for a lot of people. So it doesn't look like refeed days or carb cycling or calorie cycling are any better than simply eating the same thing every day. By contrast, it doesn't seem like eating the same thing every day is any better than refeeds or calorie cycling or carb cycling. You should do what you prefer. On balance, I would say that our Team BIolayne clients and our Carb and Diet Coach members tend to prefer having some higher calorie days to give them some more flexibility on the weekends or on days that they have events. But we have had a few clients and a few members who have said, you know what, if I raise and lower my calories, it just disrupts me too much and I just prefer to eat the same thing every day. I plan it out, it makes it easy for me. Either one of those things is completely reasonable. Again, one isn't worse for fat loss than the other. It just depends on personal preference, which is why I recommend Carb and Diet Coach, our nutritional coaching app, to you guys, because it puts so much emphasis on personal preference and flexibility. That's why we have our weekly calorie planner, and that's why we allow for any dietary preference as long as you're hitting your protein. All right, guys, hope you liked the video. Make sure you like it, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you next week.